Picture the Appalachian Mountains in the dead of winter. The wind moves through the bare trees like something alive. Snow presses down hard on the ridgelines, and the temperature slips far below freezing. The kind of cold that finds every gap, every seam, every unguarded breath. Now picture a family living through it, not for a single night, but for months on end. No electricity, no furnace, no insulation as we know it. Nothing but clay, bark, wood, and a single fire burning at the center of the room. And yet, inside those walls, they stayed warm. They stayed dry. They survived winters that would break most modern shelters in a matter of days. So the question becomes almost impossible to ignore. How? How did the Cherokee take a home built from the forest itself and turn it into a fortress against the cold? For a long time, people looked at these winter homes and saw something crude, a simple hut, a primitive shelter, a rough answer to a hard season. But the closer you look, the faster that story falls apart. Because these homes were not crude at all. They were quietly brilliant. Forgotten masterpieces of natural engineering, designed to work with winter instead of fighting against it. And what hung in the balance was never just comfort. It was children sleeping soundly through freezing nights, elders passing down everything they knew, entire families whose survival depended on getting this one thing right. Long before insulation or engineering, they built homes that trapped heat, stayed dry, and outsmarted winter itself. And here is the strangest part. The single decision that made these homes work so well was not in the walls. It was not in the roof. It was somewhere almost no one thinks to look. And that is exactly where our story begins. And where our story begins is the one place almost everyone walks right past: the ground itself. Long before a single pole was raised, the Cherokee were already reading the land, choosing a site tucked away from the harshest winds and the creep of excess moisture. It was a quiet decision, easy to overlook, and yet it changed everything. Because the earth, pressed against that home, did something no fire ever could. It held its temperature steady. While the world outside swung from bitter nights to milder days, the surrounding soil acted like a slow, patient buffer, softening those extremes and keeping the inside from lurching between hot and cold. That was the first tool, the earth, working silently on their behalf. From there, the walls rose around a frame of strong hardwood, laced together with flexible saplings, and then sealed beneath layers of clay mixed with natural fibers. As that clay dried, it hardened into a dense shell that slowed the escape of heat. But it did something more surprising, too. It breathed. Unlike so many sealed modern homes, where trapped air turns stale and damp and mold quietly gathers in the corners, these clay walls could pull excess humidity out of the air and release it back when the room grew dry, keeping the space healthier than you might ever expect from mud and timber. Even the shape was deliberate. Rounded, with almost no sharp corners, the home offered less surface for the wind to claw at, while warmth from within could circle the room evenly instead of pooling in one place. Every piece was working together, in harmony with the season rather than against it. And yet, for all their brilliance, walls alone have never warmed a single family through the night. So what was the true heart of this home? The answer was fire, but to call it merely fire would be to miss nearly everything it did. At the center of every Cherokee winter home burned a single hearth, and its place in the room was chosen with real intention. Set in the middle, The flames could push their warmth outward in every direction at once, spreading it evenly through the rounded space, instead of leaving one side scorched and the other cold. Yet the fire's most remarkable trick unfolded slowly, hour by hour. All day long, those thick clay walls quietly drank in its heat, storing it deep within them. And then, long after the flames had sunk to glowing embers, they gave that warmth back, releasing it gently through the coldest, darkest hours of the night. Engineers today call this thermal mass, but the Cherokee simply called it survival. And it meant a family could stay warm on far less firewood than you might ever imagine. The fire offered more than heat, though. Its rising smoke curled up through the timbers overhead, hardening the wood, keeping insects at bay, and slowly refreshing the air as it climbed. And yet, a fire burning nearly every single day should have created an obvious problem. Smoke and stale air building until the room grew impossible to breathe. So how did they keep that air clean, without letting their hard-won warmth escape right along with it? The answer was airflow, elegant and almost invisible. A small opening near the roof let smoke and hot air rise up and slip away, while the low doorway drew cool, fresh air in from below. Cold air kept close to the ground where it belonged. Warm air held high where the family lived and slept. And there, gathered close around that steady glow, the fire became something more than function. It was the pulse of the home, the place where warmth, light, and human closeness all came together as one. But warmth was only half the battle. Because winter doesn't only bite, it also falls from the sky. And so, against the rain and the melting snow, the Cherokee turned once more to the forest, this time to its bark. Carefully harvested in wide sheets, taken without stripping a tree bare, that bark was layered over the frame like shingles, each piece overlapping the one below so water simply ran off and fell away. Beneath its rough surface, tiny pockets of air were trapped, adding yet another quiet layer of insulation. And rather than nailing it all down with metal, the builders bound their homes with natural cordage, a choice that seems humble until you understand its genius, because those bindings let the whole structure breathe with the seasons, expanding in the damp, contracting in the cold, flexing instead of cracking. Here lies one of the most beautiful truths of these homes. Time did not tear them down. Smoke, sun, and changing weather slowly hardened and strengthened the very materials they were made of. So the house did not decay with the years. It aged alongside the forest that raised it. Step inside, and the same intelligence shaped every corner. The hearth held the center. Sleeping and living spaces circled around it so its warmth reached everyone, and storage was pressed to the outer walls, leaving the middle open and every movement short, because even a few steps toward a doorway meant precious heat slipping away. Yet, as winter deepened, that circle of firelight became something far greater than shelter. It became a classroom. Elders passed down the secrets of the hunt. Craftsmen mended their tools. Women wove baskets and prepared the stored food that would carry them to spring. And children learned simply by watching, listening, and slowly joining in. Firewood was rationed, food was shared, and no one survived alone. The walls protected them, but they protected each other. And that is the quiet secret at the heart of it all. Because the greatest material the Cherokee ever built with was never the clay, nor the wood, nor the bark. It was something far deeper and far harder to see. What the Cherokee truly built with was not something you could ever hold in your hands. It was knowledge. Patient, hard-won, gathered across countless winters until it became second nature. It was the wisdom to watch the land and let it teach, to work with the cold instead of waging war against it. That was the real material, invisible in every wall, quietly holding the whole home together. And here is what should stop us in our tracks. The very ideas the Cherokee arrived at through generations of careful observation are the same ones our brightest engineers are now rediscover. Thermal mass, passive heating, natural ventilation, breathable materials that manage moisture instead of trapping it. These are no longer forgotten crafts. They've become the pillars of modern sustainable architecture, studied in laboratories and mapped by computers, yet rooted in the exact same laws of nature that shaped a Cherokee home centuries ago.
But let us be honest about what this really means. These homes were not somehow better than the houses we live in today. That would flatten a far richer truth. Their genius was that they fit their world perfectly. Their climate, their forest, their way of life matched with a precision that took lifetimes to learn. And that lesson feels almost urgent now, in an age of rising energy bills, a shifting climate, and resources we can no longer afford to waste. Around the world, builders are turning back toward these old ideas, realizing that working with nature was never primitive. It was wise. Because sometimes progress isn't about inventing something new. Sometimes it's about rediscovering what quietly worked all along. So tell me, which part of this story surprised you the most? Share it in the comments below. And if you believe some of humanity's greatest wisdom is still out there, waiting to be found, subscribe and keep searching with us. Because the past was never truly lost. It has only been waiting for us to listen.